Hi guys, afternoon everybody. Just let me know if you guys can hear me before I start, please. All right, so just let me know if you guys can hear me before I start, please. All right. All right, great. All right, I was supposed to start at 4:30, guys, but I had to set up something here. I was having some technical problems, right? Um, all right, guys. So we're gonna go through a sample AdMaths paper here, guys. Right? As you all would realize, your syllabus is effective 2021, and what that means is that you only have 3 exam papers that are similar to what you might get tomorrow, right? That's the 2021, 2022, and the 2023, right? So the paper that I'm going to go through here is one of my sample papers, right? Just for your knowledge, right? My new cycle for classes begins in August, right? And that is for students entering Form 4, right? I know some people in Form 5 may want to join as they write an exam next year, and that's fine, right? So let me get started with this paper here. All right, so our first sample question here, we have an expression here, AB minus 7b, right, plus AC minus 7c, right? And we want to know how can we express this. So if you see a question like this in the exam, chances are it's based on factorization here. So we have AB minus 7b plus AC, right, minus 7c, right? And if you notice, all our answers here, they have brackets for all of them. So if I were you, what I would do, I would try to factorize. So we can use the first 2 terms here if we want, right? We have b common here, so we can pull out b, and this is going to be a minus 7, right? And then if we look to factorize this here, we have c common here, so we can say plus c, and this is going to be a minus 7, right? So from your normal maths, you would realize that this here is factorizing by grouping. And what we're going to do here, once you factorize them by grouping, you're going to have 2 brackets that have to be same. If they're not the same, then I can't do anything else. So what I'll do, I'll write down that common bracket first, which in this case is a minus 7. And then the next bracket will be b plus c, right? So in this case here, a minus 7, b plus c. So the answer is going to be c, right? Guys, the video has been recorded, so it'll be on the platform after, right, on YouTube. So that's fine. Even if you miss anything here, you can always go back to the video. We have our next question here. When 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus 3x minus 1 is divided by x minus 2, the quotient is what, right? Now, be careful with some of these questions here, right? This question here, I'm asking for the quotient. I did not ask for the remainder, right? Which means I need to perform a long division. In this case here, it's going to be 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus 3x minus 1, right? And we need to perform a long division here, right? So this is x minus 2, right? I mean, at this stage, you should know how to do a long division, right? I mean, exam is tomorrow, right? So let's see. In this case here, this is going to be 2x squared. And if I take that 2x squared and multiply by the x minus 1, I'm going to get 2x cubed minus 4x squared, right? Next step in this process here is to subtract. 2x cubed minus 2x cubed will give me 0. minus 5x squared minus 4x squared is the same as saying minus 5x squared plus 4x squared. So this is going to be minus x squared. Next thing we're going to do in this process here is to bring down this plus 3x. Right? So what's going to be on top here is going to be minus x, right? So in this case here, minus x now has to be multiplied by x minus 2. So this is going to be minus x squared plus 2x, right? Next step in this process is to subtract minus x squared minus x squared will give me 0. And then 3x minus 2x is going to give me x. Next thing we do, we bring down this minus 1 here. So this is going to be plus 1, right? So in this case here, 1 by x minus 2 is going to give me x minus 2, right? Now, when we subtract this here, x minus x will give me 0, and then minus 1 minus 2, right, is the same as saying minus 1 plus 2, so this is going to be 1. So we do have a remainder of 1 here, right? So some students might be tempted to rush and put 1 as the answer after you do all that hard work, but the quotient is what is up here. That's what they want, right? So this is 2x squared minus x plus 1, so the answer is going to be B in this case here, right? All right, so that's second question here. Third question here, we have 3x squared minus 5x plus 2, right? And you want to write it in a different format here. If you look at all the answers that we have here, if you look at all of them, they look like the completed square format, right? So for your exam, you need to know how to complete the square, right? And there are several ways that students complete the square. In my case, this is what I normally teach my class. So the first thing I do, I'm going to factor out this 3 here. If you factor out this 3 here, then what's going to happen is that you're going to have x squared minus 5 over 3x plus 2/3, right? So in my process, this is my step 1, right? Once we complete the square, the next line here now, we're going to have that 3 on the outside. Leave it right there. Then we're going to have x, right? And you have minus 5 over 3x. What we're going to do, we're going to find half of this number here. So in this case, this is going to be minus 5 over 6, right? And this is going to be squared. You're going to write back the 2/3. And then this is always going to be minus this number here squared, which is going to be 5 5s are 25, 6 6s are 36, right? I know several people have different ways they complete the square. Whatever you're comfortable with, stick with that, right? So this is going to be 3 open brackets x minus 5 over 6 squared. And just remember, you can use a calculator for the multiple choice, right? 2/3 minus 25 over 36. And I'm getting minus 1 over 36. And the final step in the process now is to take that 3 on the outside here and multiply by everything inside the square bracket. So this is going to be x minus 5 over 6, right? And then this is going to be minus 1 over 12. So this is going to be, let's see, 3 by x minus 5 over 6. Now, these kinds of questions here, you need to be careful. After all of that hard work, make sure you select the correct answer, right? So this is going to be D, I believe. It looks like D. Say somebody asking about calculators for chemistry and physics. Yes, you can use calculator for chemistry and physics, right? The multiple choice. Only the maths paper one, you can't use a calculator, right? All right, so some people ask about sample. This sample paper is my sample paper. It is not it is not from the 2021, 2022 or the 2023, right? All right, so that's third question here, right? So make sure you know how to complete the square. The next one here, we have the roots of this equation here. So we have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 is equal to 0. And we want to figure out what kind of roots do we have here, right? So when you want to figure out what roots you have, what we need to do, we need to figure out what is the determinant, right? So the discriminant, sorry, right? So the discriminant is given by b squared minus 4ac. That's your discriminant. So what you're going to do, you're going to compare this equation here with your quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So what that tells you is that a is equal to 2, b is equal to -5, and c is equal to 3, right? So those are the values of a, b, and c. What you're going to do, you're going to use that now to figure out your discriminant. So this is going to be -5 squared minus 4 by a, which is 2, multiplied by c, which is 3, right? So this is going to be 5 5s is 25, 4 2s are 8 3s are 24, right? So this is minus 24, and this is going to give me 1. Now there are 3 different possibilities when it comes to the discriminant. If your discriminant is negative, then you have no real roots. If your discriminant is equal to 0, you have 2 equal roots. And if your discriminant is greater than 0, then you have 2 real roots, right? So in this case here, since we have a positive value for your discriminant, we're going to get real roots. So that eliminates this, and it has to be distinct. It's not going to be equal. The only time it's equal is when the discriminant is equal to 0. So the answer in this case here should be B, right? Right? Somebody's asking about Discord server. Yeah, there is a Discord server for Terry Learning, right? All right, so that's number 4, right? That's number 4. Question 5, we have a quadratic equation is such that the sum of the roots is -1/4 and the product of the roots is 2/3. The quadratic equation is, right? So when it comes to, if you are given the sum of your roots and you're given the product of the roots, that means that I can write my quadratic equation in the form, right? X minus the sum, right, multiplied by x, right, plus the product, right, is equal to 0. So if you are given the sum of your roots and you're given the product of your roots, then all I need to do is plug that information into this equation here. So in this case here, it's going to be x squared minus the sum. The sum in this case here is -1/4. So this is -1/4, right? Multiplied by x plus the product. The product in this case is 2/3 is equal to 0, right? So this is x squared plus 1/4 x, right? Plus 2/3. Now the thing is, none of our answers look like that. So what I would do here, I'll multiply everything by 12. Right? Because if I look at the numbers 4 and 3 here, that's your LCM. So if you multiply everything by 12, you're going to get 12x squared, right? Plus 3x plus 8 is equal to 0, right? Do you have any answers looking like that? 12x squared plus 3x plus 8. So we have B as the answer here, right? I'll have to check it, right, guys? So I've seen some people asking some things here about the multiple choice. This is, so those of you who just kind of fall in here, it's add maths we're talking about here, right? This is not for maths, this is add maths we're talking about here, right? And the add maths paper is only is 45 questions, right? It's only 45 questions, not 60 like in most multiple choice papers, right? Right, so that's question 5, right? Question 6 here, we have an inequality to solve here, right? Now you have to be careful with an inequality like this. So it's 3x minus 2 all over 1 minus 5x, right? And this here is less than or equal to 0. So when you have an inequality like this, the first thing we need to do is to multiply both sides of the equation by your denominator squared. So this is going to be 3x minus 2 all over 1 minus 5x multiplied by 1 minus 5x squared, right? On the right hand side, you're doing the same thing, You don't normally write it, but that's what you're doing here. Minus 5x squared. So on the left hand side, you're going to end up with 3x minus 2 multiplied by 1 minus 5x, right? And this here is going to be 0 on the right hand side here. Let me ask you all a question, right? Since you're writing an exam tomorrow, which one of these answers here is the correct answer? Which one of these answers here do you think is the correct answer? Yeah, the recording will be up, right? The recording will be up. What you all think is going to be the answer for this question here? Alright, I've seen plenty of answers here. So here's how you're going to approach a question like this, right? So you know that when you multiply the left hand side here, you're going to get a quadratic inequality, right? You're getting a quadratic inequality. Now, what you should do first is to figure out what the roots are. So you're going to put 3x minus 2, sorry, is equal to 0. 3x is equal to 2, and therefore x is equal to 2/3. Right? Now we need these values here in order to come up with inequality. Next one is 1 minus 5x, right, is equal to 0, and therefore negative 5x is equal to negative 1, and therefore x is negative 1 over negative 5. So therefore x is equal to 1/5, right? Now those numbers are going to be used now, right? But we have to be careful. So what I normally do if I'm trying to solve something like this, I'm going to draw a quadratic, right? Now, how do we get the quadratic? You have a 3x here and you have a negative 5x here. When you multiply those two terms, you're going to get your x squared term. You're going to get negative 15x squared. So therefore, in terms of how you draw this, the graph is going to look like this, right? The graph is going to look like that. My next step in this process here now is to draw my x-axis. This here is your x-axis, right? So this is what I would normally teach my class. I don't know what you guys were taught in school. I know some people have different ways of solving a problem. Whatever method you are comfortable with, stick to that, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to write in what these two values should have been, right? So in this case here, we have 1/5 and we have 2/3, right? So 1/5 should be here, because that's 0.2, and 2/3 is 0.67, so 2/3 should be here. So therefore, I know what these values are, right? Now, the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to look at the inequality sign. It says less than or equal to. So in your thought process now, you have to ask yourself, what part of my graph is below the x-axis? That's what this less than sign here is telling me. So therefore, it's less than here, it's below here, and it's also below it here, right? So that means that any value of x less than 1/5 and any value of x more than 2/3 will be the answer, right? But there's a little thing that we have to be careful with here as well. So let me see here, right? So in terms of solution, right, the solution should be x has to be less than or equal to 1/5, right? And it also has to be greater than or equal to 2/3, right? Now, what we also have to pay attention to is this guy here, right? Now, in this case here, we have 1 minus 5x, right? And what is happening here is that we cannot have a solution, right, that is equal to 1/5, right? You can't have x being equal to 1/5, right? So therefore, we have to make an adjustment to this here. We have to make an adjustment to this here. So the solution is going to be x is less than 1/5 and x is greater than or equal to 2/3, right? Now, which one is that though? X is less than 1/5, x is greater than or equal to 2/3. So the answer that I would put here is going to be A. right? The advanced paper 2 was pretty easy, right? The only question that was kind of difficult there for most people would have been the differentiation question with the limits, right? All right, so that's number 6, right? Question 7 here, we have another quadratic inequality, 2x squared plus x minus 21 greater than or equal to 0, right? So in this case here, what we're going to do, we're going to have to factorize this, right? So this is going to be 2x, x here, right? And let's see. It has to be a 7 and a 3. I'll put 7 here and I'll put 3 here. Will that work? Minus plus, right? So 2x by x will give me 2x squared. 7 by minus 3 is minus 21. Then 7x minus 6. Okay, so we good. So when we factorize this, we get that, right? So just like in the previous question here, what you should do is to figure out your root values. So in this case here, you're going to get 2x is equal to negative 7, x is equal to negative 7 over 2, right? Then we're going to say x minus 3 is equal to 0, and therefore x is equal to 3. So those are my root values that I'm going to use to come up with the answer. So to get the x squared term, or to get the quadratic, you would have had to multiply this by this, right? So that tells me that the quadratic, it looks like this, right? It has a minimum point. Next step in the process, you're going to draw your x-axis inside here, and then you're going to put what these values are. So these values are based on what we just calculated. So this is going to be negative 7 over 2, and this here is going to be 3. Just like the previous question here, we have to look at something here. We have to look at the inequality. So the inequality is greater than or equal to. What are the inequalities telling us is what part of the graph, or what it's asking us, what part of the graph is above the x-axis. So it's above the x-axis here, in this region here, and this region here. So that means that it is any value greater than 3 or any value less than negative 7 over 2, right? So let's see which one looks like that. So my solution really should be x is less than or equal to negative 7 over 2, and it should also be greater than or equal to 3. So the only answer that gives me that looks like B. Right, the answer looks like B. Alright, somebody's asking about SBA for the admats. I think it's the same. I think it's the same 20%. Right. Alright, so that's number 7, right? Question 8, we have a question here based on surds, right? So we have 3 minus root 3, and you're multiplying that by 7 plus root 3, right? So if you have to work this out here, what we're going to do, we're going to do it in a systematic way. We're going to take the first term and multiply by the first term here. That's 3 by 7. That's going to give us 21, right? Then we're going to take that and multiply by root 3. So that's plus 3 root 3. Then we're going to take this and multiply by this. That's going to give me minus 7 root 3. And then we have to take root 3 multiplied by root 3. So when you multiply two roots, right, in this case here, your answer is simply going to be negative 3. That's correct? Yeah. Then we're going to simplify this a little bit here. So 21 minus 3 will give me 18, right? And then I have 3 root 3 minus 7 root 3. That's going to be minus 4 root 3. So therefore the answer is going to be D. Right? The answer is going to be D. Right? So that's a repeat again. I know some people might be joining and they might be thinking it's maths. Please note this is admats, this is not maths. Right? The admats paper 1 is tomorrow. And also students have been asking, what paper is this? This is one of my sample papers, right? You all only had 3 papers to work with: 2021, 2022, 2023, right? So these are sample questions based on these papers here, right? So these questions are different. Right, so that's number 8, right? Question 9 here, right? So we have an indices question here. So 3 to the power minus 2, right? And you're dividing that by, I'm writing it like this so that I can simplify if I need to. This is going to be 243, and that's being raised to the power 1/5, right? So 3 to the minus 2 is really 1 over 3 squared. Now wait, before I even reach here, could you all tell me this 243, can I write that as 3 to the power something? 243, can I write that as right? I've seen people saying 3 to the power 5. Yeah, so it's going to be 3 to the 5. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say 3 to the power minus 2 divided by, now 243 could be written as 3 to the power 5, and you can double check that with your calculator. And that's being raised to the power 1/5, right? Now, we're simply going to use the laws for indices here. So this is going to be 3 to the minus 2 divided by, now the rule I'm going to use here is this: a to the power m raised to the power n, right? That's going to be a to the power m multiplied by n. So if I take the 5 and multiply by 1/5, I'm going to get 1. So this is going to be 3 to the power 1, right? So this is the same as saying 1 over 3 squared, right? Division, we could change that to multiply and write that as 1 over 3, right? So this is going to be 1 over 3 cubed. So that's going to be 1 over 27, right? So therefore the answer is going to be B, right? The answer is going to be B. Right, I've seen people talk about the calculator. Guys, just make sure, right? I've heard some students say that the examiners took their Casio calculators, right? Please work with a backup calculator if you need to, right? So the one that I typically use, I mean, I have both. I have the Casio plus I have a Sharp, right? And the Sharp is, I can use the Sharp to basically do any question we need to do in add maths or maths, right? So just to be safe, make sure you have a backup calculator in case you want to take your Casio. Eh? Right, that's number 9. Question 10, right? I have another question here based on indices here. So I have 25 multiplied by 125, right? And you're raising that to the power 2x. And this here is equal to 25 raised to the power x, right? So anytime you have a question like that, what you need to do, you need to look at these numbers here. We have 25, we have 125, and we have 25 here. So what I will do on the left side, I can write 25 as 5 squared, right? And this is being multiplied by 125 could be written as 5 cubed. And you multiply, well, that has been raised to the power 2x, right? This 25 here could be written as 5 squared raised to the power x. So now my base here is 5. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to combine as much as we can combine. So this is gonna be 5 squared multiplied by 5 to the power. So this is an indices rule here. This is gonna be 6x is equal to 5 to the power 2x, right? Then on the left side here we have multiplication. So we're gonna add our indices. So this is gonna be 5 to the power 2 plus 6x, right? Is equal to 5 to the power 2x. Now, since the base here is the same, what we're going to do, we're going to equate our indices. So you can say 2 plus 6x, right, is equal to 2x. So therefore 6x minus 2x is equal to negative 2. So this is going to be 4x is equal to negative 2. So therefore x is negative 2 over 4. So therefore x is equal to negative a half, right? Which is going to be C. Right, so that's number 10. Question 11, we have a log question here, right? So we have log to base 3 of 2x plus 3, right? Minus log to base 3 of 3x minus 4, right, is equal to 2, right? Now the thing is, the entire question is based on log to base 3. So therefore, I need to find a way to replace 2, right? I need to replace this 2 in the form of a log to base 3. So what we would normally do, you'll write log to base 3 of something, I don't know what it is, has to be equal to 2. So if we have to convert from log format to exponent format, we can say that 3 raised to the power 2 has to be equal to a. So therefore 9 has to be equal to a, right? So what that tells me is I can replace this 2 here as log to base 3 of 9. So on the left hand side, let's not do anything here yet, but 2x plus 3, right, minus log to base 3 of, right, and this 2 here, you can replace that as log to base 3 of 9, right? So you can't work the problem with the 2 as is. I have to replace the 2 as log to base 3. So on the left hand side, I'm going to use one of our rules for logs. So log to base 3, and when you subtract in, it's going to be 2x plus 3 all over 3x minus 4, right, is equal to log to base 3 of 9. So what that means here now is that you can actually, since you have log to base 3 on both sides, you can say this here has to be equal to 9, and you're going to have to solve that, right? So 2x plus 3 all over 3x minus 4 is equal to 9 over 1. And if you want to solve this, right, so you all could try to solve it if you want. We're going to take this by this, this by this. You're going to cross multiply in order to simplify this thing here. So in this case here, I will probably do this. 9 multiplied by 3x minus 4 is equal to 2x plus 3. So 9 3s are 27x minus 36 is equal to 2x plus 3. So therefore 27x minus 2x is equal to 3 plus 36, right? So I have enough space here, but 27 minus 2, that's going to give me 25x is equal to 39. So therefore x is equal to 39 over 25. Do you have any answer looking like that? Yep, we do. Answer is B. All right, the answer is B. Right, so we have to learn. So any comments that are really not interested in, just getting rid of you guys. So all right, so that takes care of question 11. Right, so that's logs. Question 12. We have a sequence here, right, and we want to figure out what is the 25th term in the sequence. If you are given a sequence in the exam, right, it could either be an arithmetic series or it can be a geometric series. But if you look at this, minus 18, next one is minus 16, that means you subtracted 2. When you jump from here to here, again you subtracted 2. And when you jump from here to here, again you subtracted 2. So therefore, this series here is an arithmetic series, and we want to figure out what is your 25th term. I'll let you all work that out. This should be easy. Right? This should be easy. Wait, sorry, did I put plus 2? Oh, my bad. It should have been plus 2. Yeah, plus 2. Right? Sorry, so we added 2 in this case here, not subtract 2. Minus 18 to minus 16 you've added. Yeah, my bad. Right? So some people still asking what paper is. This is my paper, right? It's my paper, right? And I know somebody gonna ask, so that the paper coming tomorrow? Nope, it's not the paper coming tomorrow, right? Right, somebody's asking 0.45 in its simplest form. That's 9 over 20, right? That's 9 over 20. And that's from a maths exam, right? That 0.45 somebody's asking about, that's a maths exam, right? Somebody's asking about CAPE. No CAPE at the moment, guys. No CAPE at the moment. My schedule is too tight. Alright, so I've seen a lot of people saying A is the answer. So let's see. So for an arithmetic progression or arithmetic series, the nth term is given by A plus n minus 1 multiplied by D. The first term is your A. In this case is minus 18. So this is minus 18 plus. So remember, you're trying to work out your 25th term. So this is going to be 25 minus 1 multiplied by the common difference. In this case here, the common difference was 2. Right? Common difference was 2. So this is going to be minus 18, right, plus 24 multiplied by 2. Right? So therefore, this is going to be minus 18 plus 48. Right? And that's going to give me 30. So the answer is going to be A. Yes, you all are correct. Next one, question 13. We have a summation here, right? We have a summation here. Right, we have a summation here. We have our pattern rule, which is given by 1 over r. Your starting point is 1, and your final value for r is 5. What do you all think is the answer for question 13? I don't think they give you the formula for the nth term of an AP. I'm not sure. I can't remember if that's on the formula sheet, right? Right, the pass rate for grade 1, like a lot of people have said, CSEC has never released this, but we're looking at about maybe 75, 78 and above, more than likely, right? And that's just based on the performance of certain students we've seen and the grades that they got, right? So CSEC has never released that, so right, I've seen a lot of people saying D is the answer. So let's check this, right? Now, when it comes to a summation, this is your starting value and this is your ending value for R, and this here is your pattern rule, right? Now the thing is, you see, if this n value here is small, we can manually go and work this out. But if it's large, then we have to write it out as a series and then figure out, is it an AP or a GP, right? So I've covered this in my class. Right? So this is something you have to be careful with. If this number is small, then we can go ahead and work it out. All you're going to do, you're going to substitute into that formula there. So it's going to be 1 over 1 plus 1 over 2 So what you're doing, you're changing the value of r. Plus 1 over 3 plus 1 over 4 plus 1 over 5. Right? That's essentially what we're doing here. So you're starting with the first value of r was 1 and the final value was 5, and all you're doing is plugging into this pattern rule there. So that's going to be 1 plus a half plus 1/3 plus 1 over 4 plus 1 over 5, and we're going to get, my calculator, I'm getting 137 over 60. Right? So therefore the answer is going to be D. Right? So if you get an ending value that is small, great, you can work it out manually. That's fine. Next one, number 14. A series converges, right? They give us a series here and it converges to what? Anytime you guys see, actually wait, could you all give me the answer for 14? What do you all think is the answer for question 14? Yeah, the same formula sheet that you got in the paper 2 is the exact same formula sheet they're going to give you in the paper 1. Right? Right, I've seen people saying use the Casio to check it. That's good and fine, right? That's good and fine. But like I said, be careful, because in some schools they seize the Casio calculators. So just be aware of that, please. Right, so I've seen some of my AdMath students in class here, and I'm seeing them giving me the correct answer. So that is great, right? Right, somebody's asking why would they take the calculator? Because somehow in their minds they believe that the Casio is programmable and you can save stuff in the Casio, like formulas and those kinds of things, right? So that's why. So just be careful. All right, so they give us a series here, right? If you look at the series here, we have minus 10. The next term is minus 2. Then we have minus 2/5, right? Then we have minus 2 over 25, right? And then it keeps going. Once you see a series converges, right? The first thing you're going to look at here, you're going to realize when I jump from minus 10 to minus 2, right? What you've actually done here, you've multiplied by 1/5. When I jump from here to here, right? What you've actually done again, you've multiplied by 1/5. So minus 2 by 1/5, that's how we got minus 2/5. And then when we jump from here to there, we're gonna multiply by 1/5 again, right? So you're gonna get negative 2 over 25. So therefore, what this looks like, it looks like a geometric series. So it's a geometric series. Right? And we know for a geometric series, right, it will converge, right? So the sum to infinity is given by a over 1 minus r, but a geometric series only converges when the modulus of r is less than 1. And what that means is that r has to be greater than minus 1, but less than 1. So therefore, it's a fraction basically, right? So a in this case is minus 10. Your common ratio of r is 1/5. So therefore the sum to infinity, because that's where it's going to converge, is given by a over 1 minus r. So in this case it's going to be minus 10 all over 1 minus 1/5. Right? So that's going to be minus 10 divided by 4 over 5. And we're going to get minus 25 over 2. Right? So therefore the answer is going to be D. Right? I see somebody says, Shiva says it happened at St. Stephen's. Yeah, I've heard a lot of students say that, right? right? So somebody's asking, what does it mean when it converges, right? It means that when you keep adding up the series, right, as the series getting larger and larger, it approaches one particular value, right? That is what it means when a series converges, right? So no matter how much you add, right, no matter how much you add, so it looks like this. If this is the sum of the first n terms, and I would have plot the number of terms versus the sum of the n terms, what happens is this. It'll start to increase, but then eventually it's going to flatten out. It's not going to change much, right? It's not going to change much. So therefore it's converging. The graph is actually flattening out here. That's what we mean when a series converges, right? For an arithmetic progression, what happens is that the numbers keep getting larger and larger, right? Or smaller and smaller. So that doesn't converge. Right, question 15 here. We have the equation of the line L, which is perpendicular to 3x plus 5y equal 22, passes through the point P, right? So basically, when you have a question like this, try to understand what's happening here. So we have 3x plus 5y, right, is equal to 22, right? So I'm going to rearrange this as 5y is equal to minus 3x plus 22. So therefore, y is equal to minus 3/5 x plus 22 over 5, right? So this is my equation of that line there, right? So this line here, because it has a negative gradient, it looks like this, right? That's the equation of the line they gave us. Now we have a point P, which is 2 minus 1. So we don't know exactly where it is, but P is 2 minus 1, right? And what the question is asking me to work out is to find the equation of the line L, which is perpendicular to this line. So therefore, the line L passes through P, right? So this here is your line L that you're trying to calculate, right? So it's perpendicular to that line that we just worked out. So if this here is negative 3/5, that's a gradient, it means that the gradient of L should be 5 over 3. Because when it comes to perpendicular lines, when you multiply their gradients, you should get negative 1. So therefore, all I need to do is to invert this and put a minus sign. So the gradient of L, right, gradient of the line L has to be 5 over 3, right? 5 over 3 has to be the gradient of L. So let's work out the equation of L now. So y is equal to 5 over 3, that's m, x plus c, and we know that it passes through this point here. So that means that when x is 2, y has to be equal to minus 1. So therefore we're going to use that information to work out c. So negative 1 is equal to 5 over 3 multiplied by 2 plus c, right? So therefore c is equal to negative 1, right, minus 10 over 3. Right, and we get to negative 13 over 3. So therefore the equation of this line L is actually y is equal to 5 over 3x minus 13 over 3. Right, none of the answers look like that. So what you're going to do, you're going to multiply everything by 3. So you're going to get 3y is equal to 5x minus 13. Right, any answer looking like that yet? Well, all the answers are positive 13, right? So we put 13 here is equal to 5x minus 3y. I'm gonna double check my answer here, right? So I'm looking a little off. 3x plus 5y is 22. Right? So therefore 5y is negative 3x plus 22. Then we divide by 5, so that's negative 3/5 plus 22 over 5. So this seems correct here. So therefore the gradient of this line L has to be 5 over 3. So this is also correct, right? So that's y equal 5 over 3x plus c. X is 2, y is minus 1. So this is minus 1. All right. So this here right? I feel a minus sign is 5x. Yeah, I feel have a typo here, right? I feel have a typo here, right? But the answer for this should have been 5x minus 3y, right? Is equal to 30, right? I need to check my original file, right? I need to check the original file. But this is the correct answer here, right? This is the correct answer. Alright, so I'm just moving on to the next one. Right, moving on to the next one here. So the lines 3x plus 5y and 2x minus y, right, equals 70 intersects at a point P, and we want to find the coordinates of P here. So whenever you are given two equations and you want to figure out what are the points of intersection, you're going to have to solve them like a pair of simultaneous equations, right? So this is 2x minus y is equal to 70. So let's call this equation 1. Let's call this equation 2. Right? So from your second equation here, you can get that 2x minus 70, right, is equal to y. Right? And let's call that equation 3. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this equation here and I'm going to substitute that into the first equation. So therefore, this is going to be 3x plus 5y. So in this case, it's going to be 5 by 2x minus 70, right, is equal to 10. So therefore, this is going to be 3x plus 10x, right, minus 350 is equal to 10, right? So this is going to be 13x is equal to 10, right, plus 350. 360, right, and therefore x is equal to 360 over 13. Right, just something's up here. I feel I have one or two typos here. 3x plus 5y equal 10, 2x minus y equals 70. Right, so for this one here, I'm getting a decimal, right? So I need to double check this one here, right? I need to check my notes here, right? I need to check my notes for this one here, right? I feel I have a typo, right? I feel I have a typo, right? Let's hope this one doesn't have a typo. All right, so for this one here, we have a line and we have a circle, right? So we have a circle given by x squared plus y squared is equal to 25, right? And we have a line 7y minus x is equal to 25 as well, right? Now, what we could do, right? What we could do, so we have a circle, right? And we have a straight line, right? And the straight line does this. So basically, it's cutting at 2 points, right? So what I would do, I will call this equation 1. I'll call this equation 2, right? And from equation 2, I can get that x is equal to 7y minus 25, right? That's from equation 2. Then I'm going to take that now and I'm going to substitute that into the first equation here. So this is going to be 7y minus 25 squared plus y squared is equal to 25, right? So when I square 7y minus 25, I'm going to get 49y squared, right? Minus, this is going to be 350 y plus 25 squared. You're going to get 625 here, right? Plus y squared is equal to 25, right? So let's see what's happening here now. So let's bring all our everything on one side. So this is going to be 49y squared plus y squared minus 350y plus 625 minus 25 is equal to 0. 49y squared plus y squared is 50y squared, right? Minus 350y, right? And this is going to be plus 600, right? So even though the number's looking big here, what we could do is to divide everything by 50, right? So in this case, this is going to be y squared minus, right? So this is going to be 350 divided by 50. That's going to give me 7y, right? And then 600 divided by 50, you're going to get 12. Right? So even though the numbers look big, we got this here, right? So since I've factorized it for you guys here, which one is the correct answer? Right? I've seen a lot of people saying D is the answer. So all I will do here, right? I'll factorize this. So this is y. Right, 4 and 3, and we'll put a minus sign and a minus sign here. So basically, we're going to get that y minus 4 is equal to 0. Therefore, y is equal to 4. And we also have y minus 3 is equal to 0. So therefore, y is equal to 3. Right? So we have the two y values. What we need to do now, we need to get the x values now. So we're going to use this equation here. Right? So 7y minus 25. So that's going to be 7 by 4 minus 25. So that's 28 minus 25. That's going to be 3. So therefore, one solution is going to be 3, 4. That's one solution, right? The second solution now, we're going to say x is 7 by 3 minus 25. So that's 21 minus 25, and that's going to be minus 4. So in this case here, this solution is going to be minus 4, 3, right? So therefore, the answer is going to be D, like you all said. That's true, right? The answer is D. All right, question 18 is based on a vector question here. So we have two vectors. We have OA, right, is equal to 4i plus 3j, right? The vector OB is equal to 6i minus 4j, right? So basically, right, if I were to do a little sketch, so 4i plus 3j is going to be somewhere up here. So this is O, this is A, right? And we have 6i minus 4, right? So 6i minus 4 is going to be somewhere down here. Now I'm just drawing a sketch here so you kind of understand what you need to do here. So let's call this B. And the question wants us to work out the vector AB. So that's this vector here. That's what they want, right? So the vector AB is equal to AO, right, plus OB, right? So the vector AO is going to be negative 4i minus 3j, right, plus OB, plus 6i minus 4j. So therefore, minus 4i plus 6i is going to give me 2i. And then minus 3j minus 4j is going to give you minus 7j. Right? So the answer is going to be E. Right? The answer is E. All right, so I see a lot of people with that answer. All right, great. All right, somebody's asking what school I went to. So I went to a school called Holy Cross, and I also went to St. Joseph Convent in St. Joseph. All right, so we have PQ. All right, PQ is given by 3i minus 4j. Right, and we want to figure out a unit vector in the direction PQ. Right, now this formula is given to you guys in the exam. A unit vector is given as a vector divided by the magnitude of a vector, right? That is what a unit vector is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work out the magnitude of PQ, right? So to do that, we're using Pythagoras' theorem, basically. So it's going to be 3 squared plus minus 4 squared, right? And we're going to find the square root. So this is going to be 3 3s are 9 plus 16. So this is going to be square root of 25. So this is going to be 5, right? So therefore, the unit vector, right, in the direction of PQ has to be PQ, that's the vector, divided by the magnitude of the vector, right? So all you're going to do, you're going to say 3i minus 4j, and you're going to divide that by 5, right? So the only answer that looks like that will be, you can write that as 1/5 by 3i minus 4j, right, which is A, right? The answer is A here. All right, great. I've seen a lot of people getting these answers. What about this one here now? We have two vectors, right? Two position vectors P and Q relative to an origin O. And we want to find the acute angle POQ, right? The acute angle POQ. So I'm just going to draw a simple sketch here. This is P, right? This is Q, right? So we know what OP is and we know what OQ is, and you're trying to work out this angle here. That's what you're trying to work out. So the first thing you would do, right? So OA dot OB, you'll work out the dot product, right? In this case here, it is going to be minus 2, 4, and you're dotting that with 1, 3. So this is how you do a dot product. So this is going to be minus 2 by 1 plus 4 by 3. All right, so this is going to be minus 2 plus 12. So that's going to give me 10, right? So that's the dot product. Next thing we need to do, we need to work out what is the magnitude of OA. So using Pythagoras' theorem, so that's going to be minus 2 squared plus 4 squared. Find the square root. So that's going to be 2 2s are 4, 4 4s are 16, and 4. So there's root 20, right? Then we need to work out the magnitude of OB, which in this case is going to be 1 squared plus 3 squared, square root. So that's going to be 3 3s are 9 and 1 10. So this is root 10 here, right? So we have all our information here, and now we want to work out our angle. So the formula looks like this. So cos theta is equal to the dot product, which is going to be 10, over the product of the magnitudes. So that's root 20, root 10. So therefore cos theta is equal to right? And when you work this out here, you're going to get 0.707. So therefore, theta is equal to arc cos 0.707. So therefore, theta is 45 degrees, right? So the answer is going to be B. All right, the answer is B. Now, I don't think that's true. As far I've seen some of the papers from 2021 to 2023, there was a formula sheet. Yeah, so that's not true, right? Right, so the answer is 45 degrees, right? In the formula sheet, they actually write it like this. Cos theta, right? This is what they have on the formula sheet. A dot B all over, right? This is what you'll see on the formula sheet. It's the same formula that you will see in the paper 2 as well, right? See what else we have here. That's 20 right? 21, we have a trigonometric function here, right? Trigonometric equation, sorry. So 2 sine squared x minus 5 sine x, right, minus 3 is equal to 0, right? Now, for a question like this here, I don't necessarily like to work in terms of sine, so I will make it simpler for me. So let u equal to sine x. So therefore, I can write this as 2u squared minus 5u minus 3 is equal to 0. Now let's try to factorize this. All right, let's say 1 and 3 here. And you want to get negative 3, but you want to get negative 5. So this will be plus, and this here will be negative. Right? Now looking like it okay. So therefore, you can write 2u plus 1 is equal to 0. 2u is equal to negative 1. U is equal to negative a half. Right? So that means that sine x is equal to negative a half. Right? And on the other side, we have u minus 3 is equal to 0. So therefore, u is equal to 3. So sine x is equal to 3. Therefore, well, for this one here, right? If you all, and by the way, for the multiple choice exam, you need to know how this graph of sine x looks. It looks like this, right? The largest value is 1. The smallest value is negative 1. So if you see in 3 here, that's not possible. So there's no solution here for this one, right? So there's no solution for this. Right, but what we need to do, we need to figure out this one here, right? You all know what the answer is for 21? Yeah, sometime later I might do some physics, all right, guys? I know some of you are busy using your calculator to work this out, right? But you need to be able to work this out from first principles as well. So let me help you out here, right? So sine here is negative, right? So we need to use our quadrants when we working this out here, right? So sine, right, is only positive in the first and second. So if sine is negative, it has to be negative in the third and the fourth quadrant here, right? So what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to first work out what my first quadrant angle is. So that's second function, sine of 0.5. You're going to get 30 degrees, right? So that first angle there, let's call it alpha, right, is 30 degrees, or what we will call pi over 6, right? So that's your first quadrant angle, but that's not the answer. That's this angle here, right? That's this angle here, but that's not the answer. So what we need to do, we need to find the third and the fourth quadrant angle. So let's label this in terms of pi. So this is pi on 2. This is pi. This is 3 pi on 2. All right. And the third quadrant angle here is this angle here. So what we need to do, we need to say pi plus pi over 6. Right. So that's 1 and 1/6. So that's going to be 1/6 is 6. That's 7 pi over 6. Right, that's 7 pi over 6, right? 7 pi over 6. So this is one answer, right? That's one answer. X is 7 pi over 6, right? And we need to find the fourth quadrant angle now. So the fourth quadrant angle will be this. That's the angle here. So the angle that we're looking for is this whole angle here, right? Which in this case is going to be, so this is 2 pi here. That's a full circle. So this is going to be 2 pi minus pi on 6. Right, so that's the same as saying 2 minus 1 over 6, and that's 11 over 6, right? So this is 11 pi over 6, right? I know lots of students have great difficulty with this, but I can't go through this now, right? Can't go through this now. Right, so this answer here will be 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. So the answer is E, right? The answer is E. Right, so that's 21. Question 22, we have a triangle here, right? Angle A is 100, right? So this is 100 degrees here. Let's call that A. Angle B is 20. So let's call this B here. Let's put 20 here, right? And this one across here is angle C, right? So to work out this angle here, it's going to be 180, right, minus 100 plus 20, right? So that's 180 minus 120, which is equal to 60 degrees, right? But they want the answer in radians, right? Radians. So to work this out in radians here, right? Remember that 180 degrees, right, is actually equal to pi radians, right? So if you want to work out for 60 degrees, it's going to be 60 pi radians over 180, right? Which in this case here is going to be pi radians over 3, right? So the answer is going to be D. Right, the answer is going to be D. Next one, question 23. We have an identity to work out here. So we have cosine x all over 1 plus sine x, right, plus cosine x all over 1 minus sine x, right? So when you have a question like this, what you're going to do here, because you're adding two fractions, technically, we need to find the LCM. So the LCM is going to be 1 plus sine x, 1 minus sine x, right? So that means that across here, this should be cos x by 1 minus sine x, right? Plus, this side here is going to be cos x, right, by 1 plus sine x, right? Then we're going to simplify the top. So that's going to be cos x minus sine x cos x plus an x cos x, right, plus sine x cos x, right, all over. What you need to recognize at the bottom here, that is a difference of two squares. So that's the same as saying 1 minus sine squared, right? So on the numerator, things are going to cancel. This here will cancel with this, and you will end up with just 2 cos x on top. Now 1 minus sine squared x is the same as saying cos squared x, right? So when I work this out here, I'm going to get 2 over cos x, right? So the answer is going to be B, right? Now, what I've noticed in the last 3 exam papers, right, there are at least 6 or more questions on trigonometry, right? So just be prepared to answer any of those kinds of questions. Right, so that's 23. Question 24. If sine x is 5 over 13 and x is obtuse, then tan x is what? So think of it like this. We have a triangle, right? Now actually wait, hold on. Let me just, yeah, that's fine. Right? So if we know that sine x is 5 over 13, right? Let's say this is my angle here. All right, let's call it alpha. Right, and it is, actually let's call it x because they have x here, right? And sine is opposite over hypotenuse, right? So in this case here, this is your opposite, that's 5, and this here is 13. What you have to do in these questions here is to figure out the third length in this triangle here. So if you use Pythagoras' theorem, right, that length there is, let's call that y, right? Y squared plus 5 squared is equal to 13 squared. So y squared is 13 squared minus 5 squared, right? So y squared is equal to 169 minus 25. Y squared is equal to 144. So y is equal to root 144. So y is equal to 12. So this length here is 12, right? So when you have a question like this, we need to make sure know all the angles, right? I'm sorry, all the lengths in the right angle triangle. Now they told us that the angle x is obtuse, right? So this is what we know. So remember, all angles are positive in the first quadrant. Sine alone is positive in the second, tan is positive in the third, and cosine is positive in the fourth. Now x is obtuse, and if x is obtuse, right, it means that, and we notice that sine is positive here, it means that the angle that we're looking for here has to be in this quadrant here. That's the angle that we're looking for, right? So, right. So the angle that we're looking for is in the second quadrant, right? It's in the second quadrant. What you all think the answer should be? Since I reached this far, right? What do you think the answer should be? Right? A lot of people saying the answer is B. So since we are in the second quadrant, right, and we want to figure out what tan is, so remember tan is going to be negative. So that means that eliminates this one time, right? And if we use our triangle, right, and you want to get tan, so tan of the angle, tan x, is going to be opposite over adjacent. So it's going to be 5 over 12, but we know it has to be negative. So the answer is going to be B, right? Alright, so some of you are getting it correct, which is great. Okay, so we have sine pi on 12. Trying to work out sine pi on 12. I know some of you all, right? If you do go in the exam with the Casio calculator, it'll just spit out the answer for you guys, right? It'll just spit out the answer, and that'll be great, right? But what they really want us to do is to use one of our identities, right? Our compound angle formulas to work this out. So pi on 12, right? So this is the thought process that I would go through here if I'm working this problem. So pi on 12 is simply 180 degrees over 12, right? So that's going to be how much? 180 divided by 12, right? And that's going to give you 15 degrees, right? That's going to give you 15 degrees. Now, well, those of you who would have been in my online classes, you know you would have had the exact values for 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 45 degrees, right? These are angles that we would have learned how to get the exact value, even if it's a third form, right? We learned how to do this. So what you need to do, since you want to get 15 degrees, right? What we can do, we can use 30 and we can use 45 in order to get 15 degrees, right? Now I'm just going to write it in terms of degrees first so you could see it, right? So you want to get sine pi over 12, right? That's what you want to work out. Now I can write this as sine, now it's 15 degrees, right? So to get 15 degrees, right, it is the same as saying 45 degrees minus 30 degrees. When you subtract this here, you're going to get 15 degrees, right? So that's the same as saying sine 45. Now 45 is pi on 4, right, minus 30, sorry, which is pi on 6, right? So what you're going to use one of your expansion formulas, right, in order to work this out here. So these formulas are given to you in the exam. So if you can't remember it, just go to the first page. So it's going to be sine pi on 4 cosine pi on 6, right, minus cosine pi on 4, right, sine pi on 6, right? So at this stage here now, so sine pi on 4 is actually sine 45, which is 1 on root 2, right? Multiplied by cosine pi on 6, that's cosine 30. So cosine 30 is root 3 on 2, right? Minus cosine 45 is the same as 1 on root 2 as well. And I'm multiplying that by sine of, how much sine 30? Right? Which in this case is a half. Right? So somehow we need to take these answers here now and try to get one of those that we have there. So this is going to be root 3 over 2 root 2 minus 1 over 2 root 2, right? So in this case here, you have the same denominator. So this is going to be 2 root 2 here. And this is going to be root 3 minus 1, right? Now, none of the answers look like what we want as yet. So what I will do, I will try to rationalize. So you multiply top and below by root 2. Right? So on top here, you're going to get root 2 root 3, right? Minus root 2 all over 2 root 2 by root 2 will give me 4. So that's what you're going to get at the bottom. And then on the top here, you can write this as root 6 minus root 2 all over 4. Right? So I'm getting A as the answer. Somebody said they put a black marker on their Casio. I don't know what they'll do. Right? I don't know what they'll do. Alright, so that's 25. Alright, let's see. And I'm taking along with this paper. Alright, so that's 25. Question 26, we have a differentiation question. So we have f of x is equal to sine 3x, right, minus cosine 5x, right? So f double prime is the second differential. So let's first find the first differential. So when you differentiate sine 3x, when you differentiate sine, you should get cosine. So this should be 3 cosine 3x, right? When you differentiate cosine, you're going to get negative. So this becomes plus 5 sine 5x, right? So that's your first differential. Then we're going to differentiate a second time. That's your second differential. In this case here, you're differentiating cosine. So if you differentiate cosine, you get negative sine. So this is going to be negative 9 sine 3x. When you differentiate sine, you're going to get cosine. So this is going to be plus 25 cosine 5x, right? So the only one that gives me this answer here is going to be C, right? The answer is C. Yes, they do repeat questions in the paper one, a lot actually. Alright, so that's 26. Question 27, we have a differential again. So you want to differentiate 2x sine 3x. Right? So when you have a question like this here, we are going to use our product rule because I can identify clearly two functions here. Right? So this is your u, this is your v. Right? And the formula we're using here is d on dx of uv is going to be u dv dx, right, plus v du dx. Right, that's the formula. It's the product rule that we're using here in order to work this out. Right, so in this case here, we're going to take the first term, which is 2x. You're going to multiply by the differential of the second term, which is going to be, you differentiate in sine, so you get cosine. So this is going to be 3 cosine 3x, right, plus you're going to take the sine 3x and you're going to multiply by the differential of 2x, which is 2. So when I simplify this, I'm going to get 6x cos 3x, right, plus 2 sine 3x. Right, so the answer is D. Right, the answer is D. So I'm using the product rule in order to do this. Right. So that's 27, right? Question 28, right? This is one of those tricky kinds of questions here, right? We differentiate. So what we can do, we can use our use function of a function if we want, or there's a rule that says this. If I have ax plus b to the power n and I want to differentiate this, right? It is going to be n a by ax plus b, right, to the power n minus 1, right? That's what you're going to get when you differentiate this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write what they gave us here, which is 3 minus 2x, right? And that's square root. So we're just going to write this over in a little different way. So I'm going to write this as minus 2x plus 3 raised to the power of a half, right? Once I write it in that format, it now looks like this. So if you want to get dy dx, right, it is going to be a half multiplied by minus 2, right, multiplied by minus 2x plus 3, and this is going to be a half minus 1, which is minus a half, right? Now that's the answer there, but none of the answers really look like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to write this over. So a half by minus 2 is minus 1, so there's a minus sign here, right? And this is going to be 1 over the square root of 3 minus 2x, right? Which in this case is going to be c, right? Right, so that's the answer for question 28. Question 29. A curve has equation y is equal to f of x. The curve has a stationary point minus 1, 5. Given that f double prime is x cubed minus 4, the point P is what? So when you have a stationary point could either be a maximum point, yeah, so a curve, right, like I said, could have a maximum, right? A curve could have a maximum point, right? That's a stationary point. It could have a minimum point. It could also be a point of inflection, which is not on your syllabus, right? It's not on your syllabus, but it could appear in the exam still, right? So we have maximum, minimum, we have points of inflection. But anyways, they gave us our second derivative here, and we want to figure out that stationary point, what kind of point it is. So all you need to do, so the point P is minus 1, 5. So therefore the x value of that stationary point is minus 1. And we have f double prime, or second derivative, right? So the second derivative is x cubed minus 4. So all we need to do is to substitute minus 1 into this formula here. So this is going to be minus 1 cubed, right, minus 4. Minus 1 cubed is minus 1, minus 4. And minus 1 minus 4 is minus 5. We don't really care about the answer, but all we care about is the sign. So if it is negative, it is going to be a maximum turning point, right? If it's negative, it's going to be a maximum turning point, right? So the answer is going to be C. All right, that's 29. Question 30. We have a curve here, right? It has equation 1/3 x cubed minus 3x squared plus 8x plus 5. And we want to find the values of x at which stationary points occur. So if you want to find stationary points on any curve, we have to differentiate. So this is dy dx. When you differentiate 1/3 x cubed, you're going to get x squared. When you differentiate negative 3x squared, you're going to get negative 6x. And when you differentiate 8x, you're going to get 8. When you differentiate 5, you're going to get 0. So at a stationary point, dy dx equal to 0. Right? At a stationary point. So therefore, x squared minus 6x plus 8 is equal to 0. So this is going to be x. And this is going to be minus. So therefore, x minus 4 is equal to 0, and x is equal to 4, right? Also, we have x minus 2 is equal to 0, and therefore x is equal to 2. So therefore, the stationary points occur at 2 and 4. So the answer is D. All right, question 31. We have an integral here, right? So when you're integrating anything in the form ax plus b to the power n, right? When you integrate that, you're going to get ax plus b to the power n plus 1 all over a by n plus 1, right, plus c, right? So that's what you're going to get when you integrate this here, right? So therefore, if I integrate 2x minus 7 to the power 4, right, and I use that formula, it is going to be 2x minus 7 to the power 5 all over 2 by 5 plus c. So this is going to be 2x minus 7 to the power 5 all over 10 plus c. So which one is that? It's going to be E, right? It's going to be E. Right, so that's question 31. Question 32, we have an integral of some trigonometric functions. So you're integrating 2 cosine x minus 3 sine, right? So we want to integrate this here. So we're going to integrate 2 cosine x. When you integrate cosine, you should get sine, right? So in this case, it's going to be 2 sine x, right? That's what you're going to get here. Then when you integrate sine, right? When you integrate sine, you're going to get negative cosine. So therefore, the sign here is going to change to plus, right? And this is going to be 3/4, right? Cosine for x plus c, right? So which answer is that? 2 sine x plus 3/4. So that's going to be c, right? That's going to be c. Right, so that is question 32, right? So guys, if you haven't done so as yet, please remember to hit like and subscribe, right? Please remember to do so for me, please. All right, so this is 32. Let's see what 33 is here. So a curve has dy dx given by 6x squared plus 10x minus 3, and it passes through this point. We want the equation of the curve. So dy dx is equal to 6x squared plus 10x minus 3, right? So if you want to get the equation of the curve, we need to integrate dy dx. So we're going to integrate this here. Right? So when you integrate this, you're going to get 6x cubed over 3, which is 2x squared, right? Not correct? Sorry, 2x cubed. Right? When you integrate 10x, you're going to get 5x squared. And when you integrate negative 3, you're going to get negative 3x. And we must include the constant, right? So far it's 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 3x plus c. And what we're going to do, we have to use this point here in order to figure out what c is. So the point is 0, 1. So that means that x is 0 and y is equal to 1. So therefore 1 is equal to 2 by 0 cubed plus 5 by 0 minus 3 by 0 plus c. So everything on the right hand side is going to work out to 0, and you're going to just end up with c. So therefore the equation has to be equal to 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 3x plus 1, right? Which is going to be b. right? Jagdeo, these are my questions here, guys. These are my questions. Right, so that's question 33. Question 34, we have a curve given by this formula here. Y is equal to 4 minus x squared. The region R is bounded by the curve, the x-axis, and the y-axis, right? We want to get the area R, right? So let's see. For a question like this, right? For a question like this, y is equal to 4 minus x squared, right? If I were you, I'll try to figure out, so you know the curve has a maximum point, right? And what I would do, I'd find exactly where is it cutting my x-axis. So 4 minus x squared is equal to 0, minus x squared is equal to 4, right? And therefore, sorry. From here, we could just say x squared is equal to 4, right? And x is equal to square root of 4. So therefore, x is plus or minus 2. Now, what does that tell me? Right? That tells me how the graph is going to look. So it's cutting at minus 2 and positive 4, right? So this is minus 2 here. This is positive 2, right? So we want to know the region R bounded by the y-axis, right? The x-axis and the curve, right? So in this case here, right, we're trying to work out this area here, right? I think I missed out something here. I should have said the first quadrant, right? First quadrant. I need to include this in the question, right? It's the first quadrant we're looking at here. So this here is the region R that we're trying to work out, right? So to work out that region R here, right, that's an area you're trying to work out. So that's a definite integral. So R is equal to the integral between 2 and 0, because this is 0 here, right? And the equation is 4 minus x squared dx. So this is a definite integral. So when you integrate this, you're going to get 4x minus x cubed over 3, right? Now it's a definite integral, so we don't need to include a constant. And this is going to be 2, and this is going to be 0. So we're going to substitute 2 into our formula. So this is going to be 4 by 2 minus 2 cubed over 3 minus 4 by 0 minus 0 cubed all over 3, right? So this is going to be 8 right? So this is going to be 16 over 3 minus 0. So this is going to be 16 over 3, right? So the answer is going to be D, right? I know for some of these questions here, you can just use a calculator and work it out, yeah? Right, so that's question 34. Question 35, we have a line and it has an equation y is equal to 2x. The region R, right, the region R is bounded by the line, the x-axis, the lines x is equal to 0, x equal to 2, and that area R is rotated 360. So this is a volume question here. So try to visualize what's happening. So we have our x-axis, we have your y-axis. Now y is equal to 2x is going to look like this, right? So this here is y is equal to 2x, right? Now they are saying that between 0 and 2, so let's say this is 2 here, right? So this region here is the region we're talking about here, right? Now we're taking that region R and you're rotating it 360 degrees about the x-axis. So you're rotating this way here. So when you rotate that there, what's going to happen is that you're going to sweep out this volume here, right? Which, based on what we have here, this is going to be a cone. This is actually a cone that you're sweeping out here, right? So that's the region you're sweeping out here. If you want to work out volume, volume is given by the formula pi multiplied by the integral of y squared dx, right? That's how you find volume. So in this case here, your volume is going to be pi times the integral between 2 and 0, right? And you want y squared. So I'm just going to write this here. So this is going to be pi 2, 0. Now y squared in this case is going to be 4x squared, right? So those of you trying to figure out how did I get that, if you have y is equal to 2x and you want to get y squared, you have to square all of this, right? So this is going to give you 4x squared, right? So that's where the 4x squared came from. So normally when you're doing a volume question, you leave the pi on the outside, treat with it after. So this is going to be pi. When you integrate 4x squared, you're going to get 4x cubed all over 3, right? And the limits here will be 2 and 0. So this is going to be pi by 4 by 2 cubed all over 3 minus 4 by 0 cubed over 3. So this is going to be 2 cubed is 8, 8 fours are 32. So this is going to be 32 pi over 3, right? It's volume, so it's unit cube, right? Do we have any answer like that? Yeah, we do. The answer is B, right? The answer is B. All right, so that's 35. Question 36. So the last 5 questions in your exam paper tomorrow is going to be based on statistics, right? Which will be representation of data, and it'll also be representation, it'll be probability, right? Those are new questions, right? Those are new questions in your exam paper. So the probability tree, so I have a probability tree here, and it shows the probability of a train reaching early or late on Monday and Tuesday, right? So we have 2 events here. So we're looking at what happens on a Monday. So the train could reach late on a Monday, or it could not reach late. On a Tuesday, the same thing can happen, right? So this is a probability tree here. The probability of the train arriving late on Tuesday. Could you all work that out for me? Curious to see what answer you all get. Because these are the questions that you don't have enough practice with, right? What do you all think is the answer for this one here? Right, I was hoping to see a little more answers here, right? I only see like 2 people have an answer. Question is, what is the probability that the train arrive? What's the probability of the train arriving late on Tuesday? All right, so I've seen a lot more answers, and people have the same answer. So here's how you analyze a question like this, right? So we're looking to see when does the train, so we're looking at Tuesday, right? Tuesday is what we're looking at. And we want the train to arrive late on Tuesday. Now that is 2 different scenarios. It can arrive late here, or it could arrive late here. So it means that the train could have arrived late on Monday, right? And then arrive late on Tuesday. Or it could have arrived early on Monday, but still late on Tuesday. So you have 2 possibilities you have to work with. So in this case here, probability that we're looking for here, right? So it has to be late on the first day, which is 0.2, right? Multiply by reaching late on the second day, so that's a 0.3, right? Or right? The or in this case is that it reached early on the Monday, that's 0.8, right? Multiplied by the probability that it reaches late here, which is 0.4, so 0.4, right? And when you work this out here, you're gonna get you're gonna get 0.38, right? So that's the probability of the train arriving late, right, on Tuesday. So if you are given a question on a probability tree, so remember, like I said, there are only 3 papers you have to work with: 2021, 2022, 2023. So there isn't enough questions for you to practice, right? Okay, so that's the answer for 36. Question 37. Everybody should be able to get this one correct. We have a box and whisker plot here, and it shows the time spent by students studying for an exam. So you'll have hard maths and physics tomorrow. You're studying for the exam, right? What is the interquartile range here? Alright, I've seen people getting A as the answer. So check this, right? So you want the interquartile range. So interquartile range, right, is going to be your upper quartile, which is Q3 minus Q1, right? So we need to find Q3 and Q1 from the diagram. So on a box and whisker, this is your minimum, this is your max, right? This is Q1, this is Q2. Q2 is the median, by the way. And this is Q3 here. So we need to read off these things here. So if I read this off here, that looks like 19, right? So your Q1 is 19. Your Q3 is this guy here, which is 36, right? So that's 36 minus 19, right? And that's going to give me 17, right? So the interquartile range is going to be A, right? So that's 17. Question 38. We have a Venn diagram here, right? And the Venn diagram shows the probabilities of 2 events, M and N, right? And we want to work this out here, right? What do you all think is the answer for this? Right, so I've seen some of you guys working it out here, right? So whenever you all see something like this, right? In this case, we have M. This here, right, is what we call a conditional probability, right? Conditional probability. Now, to work out this conditional probability, the formula, since we have the 2 events, M and N, is going to be M intersect N, right, all over the probability of N, right? Now M intersect N is going to be this value here, which is 0.2, right, divided by the probability of N, which is the whole thing. That's the whole circle we're talking about here, which is the 0.2 plus the 0.4, right, which is 0.6. So this is going to be 0.2 divided by 0.6, right? Am I doing this correct? 0.2, yeah. Right, and I'm getting 0.33 here, right? I'm getting 0.33, right? So that's something. Right, we're using this here, 0.2. Yeah, I don't know. This should have been 0.33. Yeah? This should be 0.33 here, not 0.35. Right? Right? So, like I said, it's a conditional probability. Right? So, I need to change this answer here. This should be 0.33, not 0.35. Right? Right? So, that's question 38. Right? Question 39. A Form 5 student is completing her SBA. During the data collection exercise, she measures the heights of all her classmates. The height data is what? What can you say about the height data here? What can you all say about the height data, right? So we're talking about height here, right? All right, I've seen some people saying D is the answer. So in this case here, right, height is a numerical data, so it has to be quantitative, right? So once we're talking about numbers, it's quantitative, right? And height, if you measure any height of somebody, basically it can take any value, right? So therefore it has to be continuous, right? So height data is quantitative and it has to be continuous. I know there's an exam question that came, I think it's last year, right? I think in last year's paper, when they're talking about qualitative data is descriptive. So color, if you're looking at the cars in a car park and you're looking at the colors, right? Color is qualitative. It's a descriptive word that we use it, right? So if I were to ask you guys about your feeling towards, let's say, AdMats, right? Some people might say, well, I don't like it at all. That is a descriptive term. It's not a numerical term, right? So it's qualitative, right? But in the case of color can take on any value, right? You can have a range of colors. So therefore, I would consider color to be qualitative. Continuous data rather than discrete data, right? Discrete data takes on only specific values, right? So that's 39, and I think this is the last question I have here actually. So a bag contains 3 balls, 7 balls, right? 2 balls are selected at random without replacement, right? So you have in total here, you have 3 red balls and you have 7 yellow balls, right? So you're taking out 2 balls from the bag and you want to work out the probability of selecting 2 identical colors. So if you want 2 identical colors, right? So 2 identical, right? You can either pull 2 red balls, red, right? Or we can pull 2 yellow, right? So in this case, if you pull 2 red, right? So you make a first selection here, right? In total, you have 10 balls initially. So if you want to pull a red, it'll be 3 over 10, right? Now you're not replacing, because I said without replacement. So you pull out red. To pull out red again, it has to be 2 now you have left there. And this has to be 9 in this case here, right? So you already took out a red, right? So that means you have 1 less red, so you only have 2 left. So therefore it's going to be 2 over 9. That's one possibility. Now the other possibility is to pull a yellow and a yellow. So that's going to be 7 over 10, right? And then on your next selection, you have to pull a yellow again. So that's going to be 6 over 9, right? So when I work this out here, you're going to get 6 over 90 plus 7 6 that's 42 over 90, right? So that's going to be 48 over 90, right? Which is 8 over 15, right? So this here works out to 8 over 15. So the answer is going to be B, right? The answer is going to be B. Right? Somebody's asking how many repeats. Usually there's a lot, but in the case of the AdMaths exam, like I said, it's relatively new. So in terms of the number of questions repeating, I would say about between 40 and 50% probably. But there are lots of new questions that you could see tomorrow though, right? All right, guys. So that's all the time I have for you guys, which was almost 2 hours, right? So I just want to tell you guys, good luck in the AdMaths exam tomorrow, right? Read your questions carefully, right? Read your questions carefully. Don't forget, hit like and subscribe, right? Please hit like and subscribe. My new Form 4 classes will begin in August, right? My new Form 4 classes will begin in August. Sometime tonight, I will do something for physics. I'm not sure what time as yet, so just hit like, subscribe, and the bell so you'll know when I go live, right? I need to take a break before I come back on, all right? So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody, and good luck again in tomorrow's exam, right? Laters, people.